The investigation ship arrived at New Sol 3 days after the colony went silent. Commander Yuna stood on the bridge and stared at the planet below. From orbit, it looked wrong. There were black scars across the continents where cities used to shine at night. Smoke still rose from a dozen locations visible even from space. "Life signs?" she asked quietly. The sensor officer, young Jay, worked his console with shaking hands. "Scanning now, Commander. I am detecting scattered groups, small populations, but nothing like 2.3 million people. The cities are—" He stopped. His voice broke. "Say it," Yuna ordered, though she already knew. "The cities are gone, Commander. All of them." Dr. Sung-ho, the medical officer, stood beside Yuna. He was 50 years old and had seen many terrible things in his career, but nothing had prepared him for this. "We need to go down there," he said. "We need to know what happened." The landing team took 3 shuttles down to the surface. They chose the capital city first, or what remained of it. The place had been called Hope's Landing. 200,000 people had lived there. Now it was rubble and ash. Sergeant Minho led the security team through the ruins. He was a Marine trained for combat, but this was not combat. This was something else entirely. The buildings had not just been destroyed. They had been systematically demolished. Every structure had been targeted. Every street had been burned. "Commander," Minho called out, "you need to see this." He stood outside what had been a school. The building was collapsed, but part of the sign still remained. Bright letters that once spelled out New Sol Elementary were now blackened and twisted. Inside the rubble, they found small bodies, children who had been sheltering there when the attack came. Dr. Sung-ho examined the scene with professional detachment that barely concealed his horror. "Weapon signatures are consistent with Velcron plasma cannons. Military grade. This was not an accident or collateral damage. They targeted this building specifically. A school," young Jay said from behind them. "They targeted a school." They found similar scenes across the city. Hospitals had been hit multiple times. Shelters that were clearly marked with civilian populations had been systematically destroyed. Even the water treatment plants had been bombed, ensuring that any survivors would have nothing to drink. Commander Yuna documented everything. Everybody. Every destroyed building. Every piece of evidence. The anger building inside her was cold and focused. She had been in the military for 20 years. She understood war. But this was not war. This was murder. "Commander, we are detecting a distress beacon," young Jay reported. 3 kilometers north. It is weak, but it is broadcasting on emergency frequencies. They found the shelter 30 minutes later. It was underground, built to protect colonists from storms and natural disasters. The entrance had been sealed from the inside. When they opened it, they found 43 survivors. Most of them were children. A woman named Haiwan came forward. She was a teacher who had gathered as many children as she could when the attack began. "They came without warning," she said, her voice hollow. "Ships appeared in orbit and started firing. We ran, we hid. We waited for help, but no one came." "How long did the attack last?" Yuna asked gently. 2 days. They bombed us for 2 days. Then they landed troops. They went building to building, making sure no one survived. We heard the screams. We heard everything." Heywan looked at the children huddled behind her. "These are all that is left." 43 out of 200,000. Dr. Sung-ho began treating the survivors while Yuna continued investigating. They found more shelter locations, but most had been found and destroyed. The Velcron forces had been thorough. They had hunted down every group of survivors they could find. In the colonial governor's office, they recovered the security recordings. Young Jay played them back, though Yuna wanted to tell him to stop. The footage showed Velcron troops executing civilians who tried to surrender. It showed them laughing as they set fire to residential buildings. It showed them deliberately targeting areas where people were hiding. "They enjoyed it," young Jay said, his voice shaking with rage. "Look at them. They enjoyed this." Sergeant Minho stood very still, watching the footage. He had fought in border skirmishes. He had seen combat. But he had never seen anything like this. "This is not military action," he said quietly. "This is extermination." They spent 4 days on New Sol, documenting everything. Dr. Sung-ho conducted forensic analysis on the weapon signatures. Every piece of evidence pointed to the Velcron military. This was not a rogue operation. This was a coordinated attack using military vessels, military weapons, and military personnel. The final death toll was staggering. 2.2 million dead. Only scattered groups of survivors remained, hidden in remote areas or underground shelters. An entire world had been effectively destroyed in 2 days. Commander Yuna compiled her report and sent it directly to Earth Command. The message was simple and devastating. They did not just attack us. They tried to erase us. Every civilian target was deliberate. Every death was intentional. This was genocide. The response from Earth came 12 hours later. Return home immediately. Bring all evidence. Bring the survivors. War Council is convening. On the journey back to Earth, the survivors stayed mostly silent. The children did not play. They sat quietly, staring at nothing. Haewon tried to comfort them, but what comfort could there be? They had watched their world die. Sergeant Minho found young Jae in the communications room, staring at his console. The young officer was 25 years old. He had joined the space service to explore the galaxy and meet new species. Instead, he had found this. "I used to believe we were right," young Jae said. "All that talk about restraint and peace. I thought we were better than the other species because we did not resort to violence. But now I understand. We were not better. We were just naive." "Maybe," Minho replied. "Or maybe we gave them every chance to be civilized. We tried everything else first. Now we know that some species only understand one language." "What language is that?" "The language they spoke to New Sol," Minho said coldly. "The language of overwhelming force." News of New Sol reached the Galactic Council within days. Ambassador Ji-won, who had returned to the council station, presented the evidence to the assembled species. She showed them the footage. She showed them the bodies. She showed them the children who had survived. "This is what the Velcron Empire did to a peaceful colony world," she said, her voice steady despite the rage burning inside her. "This is what you allowed to happen by refusing to act. 2.2 million human beings are dead. They died because you chose political convenience over justice." Counselor Vrektar stood immediately. "The Velcron Empire denies these accusations. This is clearly propaganda. Perhaps this was human internal conflict. Perhaps rebels attacked their own people to gain sympathy." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some species called for an investigation. Others demanded action. But most remained silent, uncomfortable with the evidence but unwilling to challenge Velcron power. "You want proof?" Ji-won said, her voice cutting through the noise. "We have weapon signatures. We have orbital trajectories. We have recordings of Velcron troops. We have everything you could possibly need. But you will do nothing, just as you have done nothing for 200 years. The council speaker tried to restore order. "Ambassador, please. The council will form a committee to review this evidence. We will conduct a thorough investigation." "How long will that take?" Ji-won demanded. 6 months? A year? How many more humans need to die while you form committees? "The council must follow proper procedures," the speaker replied stiffly. Ji-won looked around the chamber at the assembled species. Some met her eyes. Most looked away. They were afraid. Not of the Velcrons. They were afraid of what humanity might become if pushed too far. "Then we are done here," Ji-won said quietly. She collected her evidence and walked out of the chamber. Behind her, the council erupted in arguments again. She did not care. They had made their choice. When she returned to her quarters, she found a message waiting from Earth. It was from President Sujin herself. "Come home, Ambassador. Your work in the council is finished. We have new work for you here." Ji-won packed her belongings. She had lived on the council station for 7 years, always hoping that diplomacy would work, always believing that reasonable beings could find peaceful solutions. New Sol had taught her the flaw in that thinking. Some beings were not reasonable. Some beings only respected strength. As her ship departed the station, Ji-won took one last look at the massive structure floating in space. It represented everything humanity had believed in: cooperation, dialogue, peace through understanding. All of it had failed. Now humanity would try something different, something the galaxy had not seen in 200 years. They would try the old human way, the way that had unified Earth, the way that had ended conflicts when words failed. They would remind the galaxy why humans had been so careful to restrain themselves in the first place. The stars beyond the observation window looked peaceful. Captain Hyun-woo stood in silence, watching them twinkle in the darkness of space. His ship, the Harmony's Voice, floated near the massive Galactic Council station. It was a diplomatic vessel, not a warship. That was important to remember. Humans always sent diplomatic vessels first. Captain, Ambassador Ji-Wan is ready for the council meeting, his communications officer said. Hyun-woo nodded. He had been doing this for 5 years now. 5 years of meetings, complaints, and careful words. 5 years of watching other species push humanity further and further, testing to see when humans would finally push back. So far, humans never did. They wrote reports instead. They filed complaints. They asked nicely for justice. The galaxy had decided this made humans weak. Ambassador Ji-Wan walked through the station's grand corridor toward the council chambers. She carried a datapad with evidence, witness statements, and documentation. Everything was properly filed and organized. Humans were very good at paperwork. They had 200 years of practice. She entered the circular chamber where representatives from 47 species sat in their designated seats. The Velcrons sat in the upper tier, their gray skin and sharp features giving them a predatory appearance. Counselor Vrektar watched her with barely concealed contempt. He did not bother to hide it anymore. Ambassador Ji-Wan, the council speaker announced. You may present your complaint. She activated her datapad. Images appeared on the holographic display at the center of the chamber. 3 human transport ships have disappeared in the past month near Velcron territory. We have recovered debris and evidence of weapons fire. 247 humans are missing and presumed dead. Vrektar stood immediately. Ridiculous accusation. The Velcron Empire does not target civilian vessels. Perhaps humans should maintain their ships better. Several counselors laughed. Not all of them, but enough. Ji-Wan felt her jaw tighten. She kept her voice calm. We have sensor logs showing Velcron military signatures at each location. Sensor logs can be fabricated, another counselor said dismissively. The council cannot act on such weak evidence. We also have survivor testimony from a damaged ship that escaped. They identified Velcron raiders. The council speaker sighed as if this was all very tedious. Ambassador, the council appreciates your concern. We will form an investigative committee to review your evidence. This will take approximately 6 months. 6 months. Ji-Wan had heard this before. Every time humans brought complaints, there were committees and reviews and diplomatic delays. Meanwhile, more humans died. More colonies were harassed. More resources were stolen from human worlds on the frontier. We request immediate action, Ji-Wan said firmly. Human lives are at stake. All lives matter, Ambassador, the speaker replied in a patronizing tone. The council must follow proper procedures. We cannot show favoritism. The meeting ended as it always did, with nothing. Ji-Wan walked back through the corridor, her hands shaking with suppressed anger. Tae-Yang, a young security officer, was waiting for her. How did it go, Ambassador? He asked, though he already knew the answer from her expression. The same as always, she said quietly. They do nothing and expect us to accept it. Why do we keep trying? Tae-Yang asked. He was 23 years old and still believed justice should be simple. Why don't we just defend ourselves? Because we are better than that, Ji-Wan replied, though the words felt hollow now. We are better than violence. We are better than revenge. That is what separates us from them. Back on the Harmony's voice, Captain Hyun-woo received Ji-Wan in his ready room. She collapsed into a chair, exhausted. They dismissed it again, she said. It was not a question. I expected as much, Hyun-woo replied. He poured her a cup of tea. An old Earth custom that somehow survived 2 centuries of space travel. The Velcrons know the Council will not act. They can do whatever they want to us. Why do they hate us so much? Ji-Wan asked. We have never threatened them. We have never attacked them. We seek only peace, Hyun-woo considered this. I think that is exactly why they hate us. We prove that their way is not the only way. The Velcron Empire is built on strength and conquest. We are built on cooperation and restraint. Our very existence challenges their worldview. So they want to destroy us. They want to prove we are weak, Hyun-woo corrected. To prove that pacifism does not work, that peace is for fools. Every time they hurt us and we do not retaliate, they believe they are right. On the bridge, the crew monitored routine communications. Young Officer Minho sat at the tactical station, reading reports from the frontier colonies. The reports were getting worse. Velcron raiders were becoming bolder. They attacked supply convoys. They harassed mining operations. They even fired on civilian stations, always careful to call it an accident afterward. Captain, Minho called out, we are receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. Hyun-woo and Ji-Wan returned to the bridge. The transmission was encrypted with the highest security protocols. That was unusual. Diplomatic vessels rarely received military communications. The message appeared on the screen. It was brief and devastating. All vessels, be advised. We have lost contact with the colony world New Sol. Population 2.3 million. Last transmission indicated an attack in progress. All nearby ships are ordered to maintain position and await instructions. The bridge fell silent. New Sol was not a military outpost. It was a farming world. Families lived there. Children went to school there. It was supposed to be safe. 2.3 million people, Jiwon whispered. That is not a raid. That is not harassment. That is... She could not finish the sentence. Hyun-woo stood very still, his face pale. He had visited New Sol twice. He remembered the fields of grain that stretched to the horizon. He remembered the children laughing in the streets. He remembered thinking how peaceful it all seemed, how far from war. Get me Earth Command, he said quietly. Now! The communications officer worked quickly. Sir, Earth Command is not responding to our hails. All military channels They are going dark, sir. Every ship is recalling to home port. They are retreating. Taeyang asked in disbelief. No, Hyun-woo said slowly. A cold feeling was spreading through his chest. They are not retreating. They are gathering. On the Galactic Council station, news of New Sol began to spread. Some species expressed sympathy. Others remained silent. The Velcron delegation smiled privately, believing they had finally broken human spirit. They did not yet understand their mistake. Ambassador Jiwon stood at the window of her quarters, looking out at Earth in the distance. That small blue world that had somehow produced a species foolish enough to believe in peace. A species patient enough to endure 200 years of insults and attacks without responding in kind. Her communication console chimed. A message from Earth, not from the diplomatic corps, from the office of the president. She read it 3 times to make sure she understood correctly. Then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who had been holding back for far too long and had finally been given permission to stop. The message was simple. The time for restraint has ended. Come home. Captain Hyun-woo received the same message. So did every human ship, every human colony, every human diplomat across the galaxy. On the council station, the other species did not notice the change yet. They would soon. They would notice when human ships began moving with purpose instead of caution. They would notice when human voices stopped asking and started demanding. They would notice when humanity finally stopped being patient. And by then, it would be far too late to remember why humans had been so careful to hold themselves back. Admiral Daewon stood in the war room aboard his flagship, looking at the tactical display of Velcros Prime. The planet hung there on the screen, 12 billion lives completely at his mercy. Around the planet, 300 human warships maintained orbital positions. Every weapon system was armed and ready. The firing solutions were already calculated. One command from him and the entire Velcron homeworld could be reduced to ash. Just like New Sol. Admiral, we have incoming communication from Earth, his aide reported. It is the president. Daewon took the call in private. President Soo-jin appeared on the screen, her face showing the exhaustion of someone who had not slept properly in weeks. Admiral, I am getting pressure from multiple directions, she said without preamble. Half of Earth wants total vengeance. They want Velcros Prime destroyed. They want every Velcron to feel what we felt. And the other half? Daewon asked. The other half wants us to show mercy, to prove we are better. Soo-jin rubbed her eyes. I am the president of Earth, but I will not make this decision alone. You are there. You have seen what the Velcrons did. You know what they are capable of. I need your recommendation. Daewon looked at the planet again. I have my recommendation. But first, I want to hear from someone else. Someone who has earned the right to speak. An hour later, Captain Hyun-woo arrived on the flagship. He had been commanding refugee operations, helping evacuate survivors from contested zones. He looked older than his years, worn down by what he had witnessed. Captain, you have been advocating for restraint since this began, Daewon said. Even after New Sol, even after everything, why? Hyun-woo stood at the window looking down at Velcros Prime. Because if we do this, we become them. Every argument we ever made about being better, about being more civilized, it all becomes a lie. We will have proven that humans are just as capable of genocide as any other species. They killed our people. Our children. I know. I was there, remember? I saw the bodies. I walked through the ruins. Hyunwoo's voice was steady but filled with pain. But our people did not die so we could become monsters. They died because they believed in a better galaxy. If we destroy Velcros Prime, we betray that belief. A transport arrived carrying someone else who had earned the right to speak. Minsu was 19 years old. He had lived on New Seoul. He had watched his parents die when their house was bombed. He had survived by hiding in a collapsed building for 3 days until rescue came. Now he stood in front of the military leadership of humanity, a thin young man with haunted eyes. They want me to talk about revenge, Minsu said quietly. They want me to say I want every Velcron dead. And part of me does. Part of me wakes up every night screaming, remembering what I saw. Remembering my mother's face when the ceiling came down. He stopped, composing himself. But I also remember what my parents taught me. They taught me that hate destroys the person who carries it. They taught me that violence creates more violence. They taught me that the only way to end a cycle of killing is for someone to choose to stop. Minsu looked directly at Admiral Daewon. If you destroy Velcros Prime, you kill 12 billion people who did not attack us. You kill children who are innocent. You kill people who are probably just as horrified by what their government did as we are. And then what? Their survivors will want revenge on us, and the cycle continues forever. So what do you want us to do? Daewon asked. I want justice. I want the people who ordered the attack to face trial. I want the Velcron Empire dismantled so they can never do this again. I want reparations and rebuilding and acknowledgement of what they did. Minsu's voice grew stronger. But I do not want genocide. I do not want other children to grow up without parents like I have to, even if they are Velcron children. Ambassador Jiwon, who had been listening to all of this, stepped forward. Admiral, I need to show you something. She activated a display showing messages from across the galaxy. Species that had remained silent during the war were now watching carefully to see what humanity would do next. Every species is making calculations right now, Jiwon explained. If we destroy Velcros Prime, they will see us as a threat that must be contained. They will form alliances against us. They will fear us, but they will not respect us. If we show restraint, if we choose mercy when we have the power to choose destruction, we change the entire political structure of the galaxy. Politics, someone muttered. This is not about politics. Everything is about politics, Jiwon replied. War is politics by other means. Peace is also politics. The question is what kind of galaxy we want to live in. One where might makes right, or one where justice and law actually mean something? The debate continued for hours. Officers argued passionately on both sides. Some pointed to the deliberate cruelty of the New Seoul attack and demanded equal response. Others argued that matching atrocity with atrocity would dishonor the memory of those who died. Finally, Admiral Daewon called for silence. I am making the decision. Not because I have the right, but because someone must. We will not destroy Velcros Prime. We will not target civilians, but we will have justice. He opened a channel to the Velcron leadership. Chancellor Threncole, you will hand over every officer involved in planning or executing the New Seoul attack. You will provide complete documentation of the chain of command. You will dissolve the Velcron Military Council and agree to 100 years of monitored demilitarization. You will pay reparations to every survivor and every family that lost someone. You will make it illegal to glorify what happened at New Seoul, and you will teach your children that it was a crime against all civilized beings. Threncole appeared on the screen. He looked broken, a leader who had led his people to destruction. We agree to all terms, unconditionally. One more thing, Daewon added. You will build a memorial on Velcros Prime, a memorial to the humans who died at New Seoul. You will maintain it forever. Every generation of Velcrons will learn what their government did, and why it must never happen again. It will be done. The channel closed. Daewon turned to his officers. Stand down weapons. Begin preparing occupation forces. We have a planet to help rebuild and a people to help reform. But before the orders could be fully implemented, alarms sounded across the fleet. A Velcron military ship, one that had refused to surrender, was making a suicide run toward the human flagship. It was heavily damaged but still capable of causing destruction. Intercept, someone shouted. No, Daewon ordered. Disable only. They want us to kill them so they can die as martyrs. Do not give them that satisfaction. Human ships moved to intercept. Precision weapons took out the Velcron ship's engines and weapons. It tumbled helplessly through space, its crew still alive, but their attack thwarted. They were beamed aboard a human vessel as prisoners. "That is how we respond," Day One said. "Even now, even when attacked, we do not kill unless we must." On Earth, the news of the decision created fierce debate. Families of New Soul victims were divided. Some praised the restraint. Others felt betrayed, believing that only total destruction of Velcros Prime could balance the scales. President Sujin addressed these concerns directly. "I understand the anger. I feel it too. But we must think about what kind of species we want to be. We could have destroyed Velcros Prime. We had the power. We chose not to. That choice defines us more than any weapon we build or any battle we win." The Galactic Council met in emergency session. For the first time in 200 years, they were not debating human complaints. They were debating how to respond to human power. "They defeated the Velcron Empire in 1 week," one counselor noted. "They did it with technology we did not know existed. And then, when they had the power to commit genocide, they chose restraint." "What does this mean?" "It means we underestimated them completely," another replied. "We thought restraint meant weakness. We were wrong. It meant they were choosing to hold back. Now we know what happens when they stop holding back, and we know that even in war they maintain their principles." A motion was proposed to reorganize the Council with humanity as a permanent member with veto power. It passed unanimously, not because the other species loved humanity, but because they respected and feared what humanity had become. Ambassador Jiwan received the news with mixed feelings. "We wanted a seat at the Council for 200 years, she said to Hyunwoo. "Now we have it, but we had to wage war to get it." "Maybe that is the lesson," Hyunwoo replied. "Peace is only respected when backed by strength. We proved we have both." On Velcros Prime, construction began on the memorial. It would be a massive structure in the center of the capital, impossible to ignore. The names of all 2.2 million victims of New Soul would be inscribed on it, and at the base a simple message in both human and Velcron languages. "We remember not to fuel hatred, but to ensure this never happens again. To any species, anywhere, ever." Admiral Daewon broadcast a message to all human forces across the galaxy. "You have done what was necessary. You have shown that humanity can wage war effectively when required, but you have also shown that we do not lose ourselves in the process. We remain who we are. We remain human. That is the greatest victory." As the fleet began dispersing to begin occupation and peacekeeping duties, Ensign Bora sat at her station and watched Velcros Prime rotate below. Earth had not looked like this in 200 years. Every orbital dock was full. Ships that had been recalled from across the galaxy now filled the space around the home world. But these were not the diplomatic vessels and transport ships the galaxy was used to seeing. These were warships. President Sujin stood in the command center beneath Geneva. Around her, military leaders gathered for the Emergency War Council. She looked at each face carefully. Fleet Admiral Daewon, General Hyrin, Intelligence Director Jinho. These were people who had spent their entire careers preparing for a war they hoped would never come. That war was here now. "Let us begin," Sujin said quietly. "Admiral Daewon, status report." The fleet admiral was 65 years old. He had joined the Space Navy when humanity first reached for the stars. He had watched as Earth built a military that everyone assumed was small and weak. He knew the truth. "All vessels have been recalled," Daewon reported. "We have complete mobilization for the first time since the Unification Wars. Current strength stands at 3,200 combat vessels, not including support ships and transports." The number hung in the air. 3,200 warships. The galaxy believed humanity had perhaps 500 military vessels. They had been counting wrong for 2 centuries. General Hyarin continued the briefing. "Ground forces are at full readiness. We have 2 million combat troops available for deployment, with another 5 million in reserve. All equipment is fully operational." Jin Ho activated a holographic display. "Intelligence has mapped every Velcron military installation, fleet position, and strategic asset. We have been collecting this data for 50 years. We know where everything is." President Sujin looked at the assembled officers. "You all know why we are here. New Soul was not the first attack on human lives, but it will be the last. The Galactic Council has proven itself useless. We stand alone. The question before us now is simple. How do we respond?" "Total war," General Hyarin said immediately. "The Velcron Empire has 200 worlds. We hit them all simultaneously. We cripple their ability to wage war, and we do it so fast they cannot respond. That will mean civilian casualties, another officer objected. Millions of Velcran civilians will die. Millions of human civilians already died, Hyarin replied coldly. They started this. We end it. Admiral Daewon raised his hand for silence. I understand the anger. I feel it too. But we must be precise in this. If we become what they are, then New Sol died for nothing. We strike military targets only. We cripple their war machine. But we do not massacre civilians. Even after what they did to us? Someone asked. Especially after what they did to us, Daewon said firmly. We prove we are better. Not weaker, better. President Sujin nodded slowly. I agree. We will show overwhelming force, but we will not abandon our principles. We are not seeking genocide. We are seeking justice, Director Jinho spoke up. There is something else you should know. Something we have kept secret even from most of Earth's government. He activated another display. The Shadow Fleet. The display showed ships unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Sleek, dangerous, and built with technology decades ahead of current standards. There were hundreds of them. For the past 70 years, we have been developing advanced weapon systems in secret, Jinho explained. Quantum drives that allow faster-than-light travel at unprecedented speeds. Energy shields that can withstand sustained bombardment. Weapons that can disable enemy ships without destroying them. We have all of this. Why? Someone asked. Why keep it secret? Because the moment we revealed it, other species would have demanded access or declared us a threat, Jinho replied. We needed an advantage. Now we use it. The strategy took shape over the next several hours. Operation Reckoning would be a multi-phase assault. Phase 1 would be a demonstration of force. A single strike so overwhelming that the Velcran Empire would understand they had made a catastrophic miscalculation. Phase 2 would be systematic dismantling of their military infrastructure. Phase 3 would be occupation and reconstruction. What about the Galactic Council? Ambassador Jiwon asked. She had been invited to the meeting despite no longer holding an official diplomatic role. They will try to stop us. Let them try, President Sujin said. We have asked for their help for 200 years. They gave us nothing but empty words. Now they will watch what happens when humans stop asking permission. That evening, President Sujin addressed the entire human race. Every colony, every ship, every human being across the galaxy watched as she spoke from the presidential palace. My fellow humans, she began. You all know what happened at New Sol. You know that 2.2 million of our people were murdered. You know that children died in their schools. That families died in their homes. That a peaceful world was turned into a graveyard. She paused, letting the words sink in. For 200 years, we have chosen peace. We have shown restraint. We have believed that rational beings could resolve conflicts through dialogue and understanding. We were wrong, not because dialogue is wrong, but because it only works when both sides want peace. The Velcran Empire does not want peace. They want domination. They see our restraint as weakness. They believe we will not fight back. They are about to learn how wrong they are. I want to be very clear about what happens next. We are going to war. Not a war of conquest. Not a war of revenge. A war of justice. We will dismantle the Velcran military. We will hold them accountable for their crimes. And we will show the galaxy that humanity's patience has limits. But we will not become monsters. We will not target civilians. We will not commit the atrocities that were committed against us. We will prove that it is possible to be both strong and moral, to be both powerful and just. To the Velcran Empire, I say this. You wanted to see what humans are capable of when we stop holding back. You are about to find out. To the Galactic Council, I say this. You had 200 years to choose justice. You chose politics. You will not stop what happens next. To all humans everywhere, stand ready. Stand proud. We did not want this war, but we will not hide from it. We are humanity and we protect our own. The broadcast ended. Across human space, the response was immediate. Shipyards went into full production mode. Civilians volunteered for military service. Colonies that had been isolated for decades suddenly reconnected with Earth, offering resources and support. The mobilization was total. Humanity had been building toward this moment for generations without realizing it. Every peaceful colony had hidden defensive capabilities. Every civilian ship could be converted to military support. Every human being had received basic survival training. The galaxy had assumed humans were soft because they lived in peace. They did not understand that humans had simply chosen peace. Given the choice between peace and survival, humans would always choose survival. Admiral Day-Wan oversaw the fleet assembly from the orbital command station. Ships arrived in formations, perfectly coordinated despite coming from hundreds of different locations. Captains who had commanded merchant vessels now took command of warships. Scientists became weapons officers. Teachers became strategists. Captain Hanul arrived in her new command, the destroyer Unforgiven. It was a shadow fleet vessel, equipped with technology the galaxy had never seen. She ran her hands over the control console, feeling the power humming beneath her fingertips. "This ship can outrun anything in Velcron space," her tactical officer said, "and our weapons can punch through their shields like they are not even there." "Good," Hanul replied. "We are going to need every advantage." The fleet was organized into battle groups. First Strike Fleet would hit the Velcron military hardest. Second Fleet would establish orbital control. Third Fleet would handle logistics and support. Every detail had been planned for years, waiting for the moment it would be needed. That moment had arrived. On the moon, massive railguns were being activated for the first time in a century. Earth's defensive grid, which everyone assumed was minimal, revealed itself to be the most powerful planetary defense system in the galaxy. Hidden weapon platforms appeared in orbit. Stealth satellites activated their targeting systems. If any species tried to take advantage of Earth's distraction, they would face the consequences. Director Jin Ho sent a message to every human intelligence operative across the galaxy. Active protocols now in effect. Gather information on all major powers. We need to know who will stand against us and who will stay neutral. The reports came back quickly. Most species were terrified. Some were secretly pleased that someone was finally standing up to the Velcron Empire. A few were considering whether this was an opportunity to settle their own grudges. None of them were willing to help humanity. They would watch from the sidelines and see what happened. General Hyrin briefed the Marine commanders. "Remember, we are not conquerors. We are liberators. Many worlds under Velcron control are occupied territories that would welcome freedom. We offer them that chance. But anyone who fights for the Velcrons will be treated as an enemy." The final piece fell into place when Ambassador Ji-Wan composed the official declaration. It would be sent to the Galactic Council, to the Velcron Empire, and to every species in known space. The message was simple. The Velcron Empire committed genocide against the human colony of New Su. The first battle lasted 11 minutes. That was all the time it took for the Velcron Third Fleet to cease existing as a fighting force. Admiral Jae-sung commanded the First Strike Fleet from his flagship, the Reckoning. He watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction as human ships emerged from quantum space directly into Velcron-controlled territory. The Velcron commanders had no warning. One moment their sensors were clear. The next 300 human warships appeared around them. "All ships weapons-free," Jae-sung ordered. "Disable but do not destroy. We want prisoners for the war crimes trials." The human ships moved with precision that shocked the Velcron forces. Coordinated strikes hit shield generators first, then weapons systems, then engines. Within minutes, Velcron warships were floating helplessly in space. Their crews still alive, but their ships completely disabled. "Admiral, receiving surrender signals from multiple Velcron vessels," the communications officer reported. "Accepted. Send boarding teams. Secure the ships and take the crews into custody." Jae-sung pulled up the tactical map of Velcron space. "Move to the next target. We have 40 more fleet groups to neutralize." Captain Hanel piloted the Unforgiven through the debris field of the battle. Her ship had not fired a single shot. It had not needed to. The Unforgiven was an electronic warfare vessel, equipped with systems that could hack into enemy computers and shut down their systems remotely. "Captain, I am detecting Velcron reinforcements arriving. 2 capital ships and 15 escorts," her tactical officer reported. "Show them what we can do," Hanul ordered. The Unforgiven activated its quantum communications jammer. Suddenly, every Velcron ship in the area lost contact with each other, and with their command structure. They were blind, deaf, and isolated. Then the hacking systems went to work. One by one, Velcron ships found their own computers turning against them. Weapons powered down. Shields collapsed. Life support remained active, but everything else simply stopped working. The Velcron admiral in command of the reinforcements stared at his blank screens in horror. He tried emergency protocols, manual overrides, even physically disconnecting systems. Nothing worked. The human ship had taken control of his entire fleet without firing a shot. "Get me a communication channel," the Admiral ordered his crew. "Any channel. I need to surrender before they decide to get violent." Throughout Velcron space, the same scene repeated. Human forces appeared without warning, struck with overwhelming precision, and disabled enemy forces before they could respond. The technology gap was staggering. Weapons that the Velcrons thought were cutting edge proved useless against human shields. Tactics that had won them a dozen wars failed completely against human coordination. Commander Taman led the Special Operations Forces on a mission to secure a Velcron military research station. His team moved through the station like ghosts, their stealth suits rendering them invisible to sensors. They bypassed security systems that the Velcrons considered unbreakable. "Target is 3 levels down," Taman whispered to his team. "We need the data cores intact. Non-lethal force only unless they give us no choice." They found the research director in his office, frantically trying to delete files. Taman stunned him with a pulse weapon and secured the data cores. The entire operation took 12 minutes. "Not a single shot was fired, package secured," Taman reported. "Extraction in progress." The data they recovered proved what human intelligence had suspected. The attack on New Sol had been planned at the highest levels of the Velcron government. Orders had come directly from the military council. There were even discussions about which human colonies to target next. This was not rogue officers acting alone. This was official policy. Ensign Bora sat at her station aboard the destroyer Justice's call, watching the battles unfold through sensor feeds. She was 24 years old and had been in the Navy for 3 years. She had joined to see the galaxy and serve humanity. She had not expected to see war. What shocked her most was not the fighting itself. It was how carefully controlled it was. Every human weapon was set to disable rather than destroy. Every target was verified before engagement. Enemy crews were being taken prisoner and treated according to established protocols. "We could destroy them all," the officer next to her muttered. "After what they did to New Sol, we could just blow their ships apart." "But we do not. Because we are not them," Bora replied. "We are proving that. Is anyone even watching? Does the galaxy care that we are fighting with restraint?" "They are watching," Bora said, gesturing to the communication feeds. "Every species in the galaxy is watching. And they are terrified." She was right. Across the galaxy, other species monitored the war with growing fear. They were not afraid of human brutality. They were afraid of human capability. For 200 years, humanity had hidden its true military strength. Now that strength was on full display, and it was overwhelming. The Velcron Empire had been considered one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. Human forces were dismantling them in days. On the Galactic Council Station, emergency sessions convened constantly. Species that had dismissed human complaints for decades now panicked about what humanity might do next. "We must intervene," one counselor declared. "We must stop this war before it spreads." "Stop it how?" another asked. "Send the Council peacekeeping force? We have 200 ships. Humanity just deployed 3,000, and they are using technology we did not know existed. We cannot stop them even if we wanted to." Counselor Rektar sat in his seat, watching his people's military collapse on the strategic displays. He had pushed for the attack on New Sol. He had argued that humans needed to be taught a lesson. He had been so certain they would not fight back. He had been catastrophically wrong. Admiral Jae-sung received regular updates from Earth Command. The war was progressing faster than expected. Velcron forces were surrendering en masse once they realized resistance was futile. Some worlds were declaring independence from the Empire entirely, hoping to avoid conflict with human forces. "Admiral, we are approaching the Velcron capital world of Velcros Prime," the navigation officer reported. "Fleet is in position for orbital control." Jae-sung looked at the planet on his main screen. 12 billion Velcrons lived there. Civilians who had nothing to do with the attack on New Sol, children who were innocent, families just trying to live their lives. He thought about New Sol, about the children who had died there, about the deliberate targeting of schools and hospitals, about 2.2 million innocent humans erased from existence. Then he thought about who humanity was supposed to be. "All ships establish orbital positions but do not fire. Weapons are to remain locked on military targets only. If they engage us, we respond with precision strikes. But we do not bombard civilian areas. Is that understood? Yes, Admiral. On the surface of Velcros Prime, panic spread through the capital city. Everyone expected the humans to do to them what had been done to New Sol. They expected fire from the sky. They expected death and destruction. Instead, the human fleet simply waited in orbit, threatening but not attacking. Admiral Jae Sung opened a channel to the Velcron Military Council. This is Admiral Jae Sung of the Earth Fleet. Your military is defeated. Your fleets are captured or destroyed. You have no ability to continue this war. I am offering you one chance to surrender with honor. Hand over the officers responsible for the New Sol massacre. Agree to complete demilitarization. Accept war crimes trials. Do this and Velcros Prime will not be harmed. The Velcron Military Council sat in their command bunker deep beneath the capital. They looked at each other in shock. The humans had won, completely, decisively, and now they were offering terms instead of revenge. They could kill us all, one general said quietly. We did it to them. They could do it to us. Why do they not? Because they are actually better than us, another replied bitterly. We thought restraint was weakness. It was not. It was choice. And now they are choosing to spare us even though we do not deserve it. The Velcron Chancellor, Supreme Leader Threnkol, made the decision. Open a channel to the human admiral. We surrender. Unconditionally. When the surrender was broadcast across the galaxy, species everywhere reacted with shock. The Velcron Empire, which had terrorized its neighbors for centuries, had been defeated in less than a week. And the humans had done it while deliberately avoiding civilian casualties. They are showing us up, one alien diplomat said to his colleague. They are proving they can wage total war without losing their morality. How do we respond to that? We respect them, the colleague replied, and we never ever push them again. On Earth, President Sujin addressed the public again. The Velcron Empire has surrendered. Their military has been neutralized. The officers responsible for New Sol will face justice. But I want to be very clear. We did not do this out of revenge. We did this to ensure it never happens again, to any species, anywhere. Admiral Daewon sent a message to all human forces. You have performed magnificently. You have shown the galaxy that humanity can be both strong and just. Now comes the harder part. Occupation, reconstruction. Helping the Velcron people build something better than what they had. We must be as good at peace as we were at war.